Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Perspective is Viv podcast. My name is Viv, and welcome to the show. Today's topic is M for Mother, and we have a very special guest with us, introducing Bunny Blash. Hi, Bunny. Please, can you tell us more about yourself and where we can connect with your work?
Hello. First, I want to say I'm so honored to be on your podcast. This is such a blessing to me.
Hmm,
Um,
thank
and
you.
let's see. Well, I'm sorry. What was the first question again?
Can you tell us more about yourself and where we can connect with your work?
Okay, absolutely. Well, I am Bunny. I'm a master Reiki practitioner and what people will call a channeler. Um, and I have a lot, I'll say a yoga instructor. I have so many different certificates and so many different modalities. Will just say that I am, in the essence of everything, an energy healer.
Hmm,
Or work as an energy healer. I want to take away that I am, because the energy healing that happens through me, I am just a conduit of. It's not something that comes from me directly. It is something that moves through me. So I want to take away that I am a healer, because that is crazy. I am not the healer. This body of mine is just used in that kind of way.
okay, that makes sense.
hmm So I guess where you would be able to find my works and things at is mostly everything is under my business name, Self Healing Effect. We operate also under the acronym SHE. Um, the reason why I chose this is, one, because I work with women only. Um, I will from time to time sit with a man if a wife or a girlfriend or sister or mother needs help with
Okay,
a male in their life and may need a session for him as well. But my 99% of my focus is helping
women.
women to basically, remember the power within themselves.
Okay. That's very
hmm
interesting. Thank you for sharing that with us. So, my first question for you while we get comfortable, you
Yeah.
refer to yourself as an ancient mother. What does that mean to you?
Okay. So, and let's say this. I have been an elder since I can remember, Now, it was so hard for me to say that at one point in time, because I grew up around so many elders. my mother's mother wasn't, my mother's mother was 43 before she had my own mother.
Mm,
Before my mother even had me, my grandmother was older than most of my friends' grandparents. Um, so I grew up around a lot of older people, so maybe I had like old ways that were seen in me as a younger person, um, holding so much space with older people. But when I was visiting for teaching a class one time, I stopped at this woman's house that sold crystals, and well, it was her crystal store. And I stopped there, and I meet her in person for the first time. I had met her online,
okay.
through interactions and things, and I called her Mayat. It was
Mm,
the name the spirit gave me to call her, Mayat. So I just would call her Ma. Not knowing her background about her or anything. That was the energy that I would get off from her.
okay.
So to me, she was a very, very mothering figure. She had all of the feelings of nurturement, like nurturing within her, no matter who you were. And that was what I felt about her. I'm leaving her place and I'm going to close the door of my car, and she swings my door open and she says, "And who are you?
Mm,
And who are you to not take witness of the elder within you? You
mm.
think that all these older people around you are your elders?
Oh, wow.
You were birthed to be theirs." She was like, "You around here taking everybody else's lessons and their schools and stuff, while we've been sitting here waiting for you
Mm,
to do yours."
wow.
And this woman also did not know me from a can of paint neither. She did not know me from a can of paint neither. And the other things that she spoke over me, she had no idea that I was working with these doctors, going to their school, you know, and they're elders to me. They were in their 60s and 70s. I respected them fully. And she told me, that I was in the midst of people that did not want me to see the wisdom within me, that I was birthed here as a mother,
Hmm.
you know, and the reason why I was able to see the mother in her was because of the mothering in me.
Okay.
Um, so it, I feel myself as a mothering figure because I've always taken in children ever since I could take them in. I'm an honest mother. I don't sugarcoat anything with kids because I've had my own journey as a child, you know. And so I like to be very honest with kids about how life can be, but I also like to back up that honesty with tools, you know, that they can possibly use so that life doesn't, through all of its ups and downs, also beat them up, you know. Hmm.
That's a really good way to approach it.
Yeah, so in a lot of ways, like physically, I'm a mother, but I feel that I might also hold space with elders because I am, and at times, very much an elder. I have visions of times before we were even human beings. I have complete visions of times before we were even human beings. And I'll tell you this, and I thought that at first I was crazy having these visions until I met other people that brought these things up to me and knew nothing about my dreams. They had their own awake dreams of these kind of same visions.
That's very interesting. So, for me, when you speak about all of this, I think you're talking about all facets of being a mother without
Yeah,
necessarily being a mother for kids alone. There's different
absolutely.
facets. So, how has that in all its forms shaped your identity?
Okay, great question. Motherhood has shaped me into a well of love, a bearer of lessons, a keeper of sacred space. It's taught me patience, surrender, resilience, and the weight of responsibility. Whether mothering my own children or my community, my clients, or even myself, each experience has deepened my capacity for love and my understanding of healing and how it can come in so many shape, forms, and fashions. I'll say that motherhood has shown me that my arms are made for embracing, but they're also made for letting go when the time comes.
Very profound. Wow.
Hmm.
Okay. Okay. So, when you mention the hands of all the mothers within you, how do you
Mm.
feel their presence in your life and work?
Yes. So when
I
I
love that
don't
you're
know what
laughing.
happened that I started calling on all of the hands of the women before me to lay hands with me, to lay down hands with me. I think about the struggle of women, the oppression of our abilities,
Yeah.
and how far removed we are from the the innate healing that is within us, that is our birthright, right? And when I think about this, it brought on the thought of how many women's hands have healed before we ever even got here. I'm connected to so many different women whose stories I know and don't know.
Hmm.
I know of my grandmother being known as a hand layer, like a layer of hands, a healer within her hands. I know that one of my other grandmothers was known to have a prophetic tongue and a prayerful tongue and be able to pray things into prophecy for people. You know, like I've 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 heard these stories, I know these things, and I just thought one day, well, if I'm utilizing just the strength within me, what if I actually ask or call in the strength in the hands of all of the other women before me that run through my blood? And then I'll tell you this, when I'm working on other people, I ask for the hands of their ancestors to come into and lay hands with me. It's not just my own that I'm calling on. When I'm holding space with other people, I call on the ancestors of them that mean goodwill, that have good intent, to come and lay hands with me on them.
Very interesting. And that's
Hmm.
powerful. That's powerful in its own way. You connecting with them through your ancestral power and gifts, but you're working together. Because when you're doing energy work, it's spirit work. You need permission,
Hmm.
you need consent. You also need
Absolutely.
to work in a way that is aligned with the energy signature of that person, but it's also in a way that it's resonant with the ancestral team working with them as well. So I think that's very powerful. Not everyone I've talked to do that, and I think that that's why this conversation is happening, because you speak a lot about ancestral veneration and the mothers
Hmm.
before you, and I just felt so intrigued. I was like, oh, what would it be like to really have access to those deep gifts that run through your bloodline? You've spoken about your
Yeah.
grandmother, your mother having prophetic tongue and praying. Just knowing those stories are so important. So thank you for sharing that.
Yes, yes. And one of the things that really, really opened my mind up as a younger person was to learn that when my mother was formed as an egg within inside my grandmother's womb, even before her womb, before the womb was actually even formed, when my grandmother was an egg inside of my great grandmother's womb, when she was formed as an egg inside of my great grandmother, my mother was already formed in her, and I was already formed in my mother.
Right.
So for that, just that scientific fact to come to me, just the science of that opened up my mind to understanding something far beyond, what we might be taught just on a basic level of things, you know. So yes, it made me think about the trauma that my grandmother's experienced, that I was birthed into and unknowingly birthed into, that I still carry these things along with me into this birthing body here. So when I discovered this information, it further implemented in me healing, generational healing within myself, honoring the women that came before me, loving on them, speaking love over them. And like I said, whether I know their names or not, they know their names. They know whose name travels through my blood.
Exactly.
It doesn't have to come to me in the way of their exact names, but I honor all of them all the time, all the time. I thank them for the information that they open me up to, because it has been not only healing for me, but I've watched my mother go through her own healing because of the decisions that I've made for myself.
Oh, that's very interesting. Can you share some?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And my mother's even open to talking about these things herself. She's in school for to get her doctorate in transcendental psychology.
Oh, that's
So
interesting.
yes, and I'll tell you this: for a long time, my mother was on drugs. Okay, for many many years, she was on drugs. Let's say about 20 of my years, she was on drugs,
Okay.
and it was really hard for me to have a relationship with her, but I understood things so deeply even back when I was younger, you know that it was always for me to have a relationship with my mother. Like it was always for me, you know that's not for everybody else, but for me, I understood things in a much deeper way with my mother's journey, because I understood that her trauma wasn't just her own, that had developed her into this person that became my mother. And this woman that became my mother wasn't given any handbook on how to be a mother just because she was birthing me. You know, it wasn't like that, oh, here's your baby and here's a handbook on how to go through life as a mother and try
For
to
sure.
navigate your own life with a baby in it. There's no handbook given to any parents, you know. So when I started to understand these kind of things within myself, it opened me up to continue to try to build a relationship with her. And at one point in my life, I had moved away from her completely. And we would talk every once in a blue moon. And I would open the door, and then she would do things that would make me want to just shut the door again. And then one morning, I was called to move back to where she lived. And I
Hmm.
was like, Spirit, why the heck would I be going there?
Wow.
Right. Why would I be going there? And I went there, and I didn't know how much I was going to need my mommy.
Hmm.
I didn't know how much I was going to need my mommy when Spirit brought me there.
That's
And
powerful.
my mom didn't know how much she was going to need me when Spirit brought me there. And not just me, but the reflections of her through my children, you know,
Ooh.
to see her lineage passed down. She didn't know she needed that either. I didn't know she needed that either.
That's
To
such a unique perspective. I haven't even thought about like generational healing in that way.
Oh, to see her own faces on these children faces, to see her own personality, to see me, a version of me too, as the in these children. It
Mm.
has done something to her heart. It really did. My my coming home gave my mother the strength to want to heal her addictions. All
Hmm.
of the things that I have watched my mother battle through, as far as addictions are concerned, I have watched her break every chain on her own, through her own will. And it was really, now it did not that it didn't take boundaries from me, you know, not that it didn't take me standing up for myself too, not that we didn't bump heads and have fights. And I mean, things got ugly.
Hmm.
Even when I moved back home, things got ugly for a second before they got better. But I kept moving, even though things were ugly between me and her. I kept moving for myself. I kept loving on me. I kept honoring my grandmothers. I kept opening myself up to the information that was coming for me. And the more that I did that, when she would start to come around, she would see these things and it would remind her of stuff she had forgotten.
That's so powerful.
Yes, it did. And eventually this reminded her of herself.
And when you talk about that, thank you for sharing that. How do you
Hmm.
apply what ancestral practices do you do to honor your ancestral lineage, right? In a way
Hmm.
that you can see actively and positively impact your relationship with your mother, your kids? How do you
Yes.
honor your ancestors? And how have you seen changes that have positively impacted your present family with you in your present life? I keep saying present, but yeah.
Y- Yes, but absolutely, absolutely. I mean, one of the ways I do quite a bit of things to honor my ancestors, you know. So some of the things I do is communion with the moon. Um, so really more full moon, new moon cycles. I also do connection during different seasonal changes, you know, and different rituals during those seasonal changes. And I bring my children into those rituals with me.
Oh,
Um, so, for instance, during our let's see, summer solstice, one time I was given the word Sankofa and was given this information about reaching back, you know, about pulling the good things from the back up to the present. And in that space, I was opened up doors about my bloodline that I didn't know about. I
hmm.
found different other women who I had no idea I had ties to. And through that, I was told to honor her with flowers and at the water. And so I set up an altar and I just followed instinct, you know. Um, Yeah, and I tell people all the time, a lot of times we'll feel these things and it'll be like, that sounds stupid, like to yourself because you've never done it before. Like, why would I think about that? Why would I orange and put it in front of this photo? You know? But it's really instincts. And a lot of times we turn away from our instinct, not realizing that that is our true intuition talking to us. That is our
I agree.
ancestral blood raising up in us and whispering to us memories of things that are lost to us.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know, like I, I cannot explain the reasons why I do a lot of the things I do, but I love to bring women into the fold of the things that are being whispered to me so that they can feel their whispers too. And I find that in sharing these ancestral situations with other women, that it does open them up to their own ancestral information. Like, yes, you are coming here because my ancestors have whispered these things to me. And yes, we may be moving in a collection because of the things that were whispered to me, and I'm sharing this with you. But I've only been told to share this with you because we share some connection in these spaces, that this is your practice too, that you belong here
Understanding.
as much as I do in
Yeah.
these practices.
Yes. Oh, thank you. That's a really nice answer to the question. I wanted to know, how do you commune with the moon? What is your practice when it's a new moon or a full moon? I think those are the most potent times for practice.
Oh, yes, yes. Okay, so there's a lot of things that I do. So one of the things is that so I'm native and we have a lot of different kind of practices that we
Okay.
do, you know.
Okay.
So one of the things that I love to do during the moon is sweat, right? And let me tell you about a sweat. Let me tell you about a sweat. It's very sacred, okay? So we dig out kind of a small, not really a hole, but like what would be kind of shaped like a basin into the ground, and get this willow tree limbs during a certain time of the year, and guide them around into creating kind of a hut over this area that's been dug out. And it's dug out for enough people to sit in a circle within there. And within that kind of dugout is a deeper dugout for um, hot stones to go into, right? So there's a mound built with these limbs from the tree, and it's built over, and over that mound is hide that's placed over there. And then there's a door that's a flap that opens up. And we go into that sweat and we sit in a circle around the smaller hole. And the chief that is in charge of the sweat tells the young man that's manning the stones, which are grandfather stones. They're filled with stories of information, you know, hundreds and hundreds of years of information, of blessings are within those
Wow.
stones. So they've been on a fire that's been built through the day,
Hmm.
and they've been just burning and turning to embers, literal boulders, small boulders turning into embers. And the chief will tell how many people to bring, how many grandfathers to bring inside. So we put those grandfathers in the center, and then that flap close, and there's water there, and we pray for the water, and he then begins to splash that water onto those stones. And we begin our first round, which is the prayer round. And we do 4 rounds of that. And in real life, what we're doing when we go in there is sacrificing our bodies and ourselves for everyone that cannot come in there with us.
Okay.
So I give my body up as a sacrifice to really be burnt by steam, to literally be burnt up in there. I mean, it is hotter than any kind of heat that anybody has ever felt. I believe that these
Interesting.
boulders sit for hours turning into embers, and we are in that hut with
Like a
no,
sauna.
yes, yes, but think about a sauna times
Oh no.
10,000,
Wow.
times
Okay.
10,000 there. And it is
Interesting.
disrespectful to leave out of there.
Hmm.
It is disrespectful to leave out of there. You have to learn how to breathe in there.
Okay.
You have to learn how to sit still for a long period of time,
Wow.
and you pray I mean, and there's times that you're so hot and the only thing you can do would be considered what would be considered in other religions of speaking tongue, because you don't have any idea what's even coming out of your mouth because you're so hot. You're so hot in there. But we go in there as a sacrifice for everyone that cannot go in there. And so we take everybody, even all of our ancestors, even the ones that have not yet been able to pass on, that are still walking as spirits on this earth. We take them in there with us and we ask for their healing. In the way that I've been raised is that we pray for ourselves first, right? Because you know how in the plane you're supposed to put that mask on for yourself first and help the person next to you. So we pray for ourselves first, because without the prayer for ourselves first, how can we know how to pray for somebody else?
Definitely.
How can we even do that? So on full moon, I am in active prayer for everybody that can come in there with me through
Mm,
spiritually, that opens their heart at that time, in that time of night, and says, I'm open to whatever healing the earth has for me, whatever healing spirit has for me today. I am also a person that is coming into that healing with you in alignment, and going into that sweat and
okay.
using my body and my mind and my soul and crying out for you, and praying fervorously for you.
Yes. Wow. So powerful. Thank you for
And
sharing
I'll tell
that.
you what that sweat represents. It represents us going into the belly of Mother Earth. The mound looks like a pregnant belly. We're
Oh,
going into the womb of Mother Earth, and every time we come out, we are rebirthed again. We go into the womb of Mother Earth to ask for her healing.
fascinating, honestly. Wow.
Hmm.
And very symbolic as well, because if we're talking moons, the woman, we work with the moon cycles. We have our menstrual cycle around the moon. Full moon is kind of
Yes.
like a culmination, a release, being pregnant and giving birth. So I totally
Hmm.
understand that. I connect to what you're saying. But do you have any tips you'd like to share with people who want to begin their ancestral journey? That's one question. And then what lessons or messages have you gotten from your ancestors that you feel are most important for women today?
Okay. Yes. Yes. So I would say that some of the best ways, like in trying in connecting, one is to ask them. Just simply ask them to come around. Simply say to spirit that I open myself up to receiving the information of my ancestors. And if we want to be specific to motherly ancestral information, then say that. It's
Okay, just
one of the
ask.
first things. Yeah, just ask. Create space for them to move within your life. One of the other things is that setting up an altar, you know. Um, you can have pictures or not have pictures. You can put on that altar what you're led to put on that altar, especially when asking for them to come through. I promise you will be guided. Nothing is dumb
Mm,
under the sun. I promise you that. And if you feel led to cook their foods, do that.
yeah.
Yeah. If you feel led to speak their names, do that. Some of my old lady friends will add a cigarette.
Yeah, I
They
heard
might
that's
put a
good.
shot out. Yeah.
Yes.
And in my bloodline, tobacco is the first medicine, so it's definitely something that's offered up on the altar.
Okay.
Hmm.
I've heard beautiful things about having an altar. Obviously, the simplicity of it, how you can use one white candle, a container of water, and that's it. And
Yes.
then, for anybody that wants to just start, and then when you're developing it, you add pictures, you bring offerings, flowers, liquor,
Hmm.
tobacco. They say coffee also helps when you're like praying and
Yes.
giving a petition,
Yes.
right? It
Yes.
makes things faster.
Yes. Well, not only that, but you may have ancestral situations that definitely loved coffee,
Okay.
and they will step forward with
Yeah.
information
Y-
for you. Like I
Yes.
said, I really go based off of where I'm intuitively led. But as you said, on a basic start level, really, it could be just as simple as water and a candle.
That's good to know. I think another thing I wanted to ask was yeah, I found like back in the day when I first started like ancestral veneration, I loved the hints you could get on your tongue for what you should put on your altar. You know how I don't know how your ancestors ask you, but I started
Mhm.
tasting coconut on my tongue randomly. And we had coconuts at home, but I was like, this is so weird. And it was a combination of coconuts and honey. And when you read about
Mhm.
people who have this like ongoing relationship with their ancestors, you find funny stories with how they relay information to their
Mhm.
descendants. Like,
Mhm.
I need this on the altar. I need this. I need that. You know, sitting down, I'm not going to lie. I feel like my ancestors, they're the ones that are benevolent. They're not stressful. I don't get that urge anymore to put something. But I
Mhm.
did get that urge of my body the altar. Like when I eat, you eat.
Mhm.
When I don't have to go to this physical space to talk to you. I can talk to you in my mind, you know.
Mhm.
Plus, I
Mhm.
work well with water. So in the shower, I also talk. And I found that it's really cool when you speak and pray under the shower because of water, you know. And it's beautiful how this entire spiritual journey, it's about working with the elements of nature. And
Mhm.
the mother is at the
Mhm.
root of everything, nature, you know,
Mhm.
water,
Mhm.
earth, wind, fire, you know. So those are the
Mhm.
things I know. I feel like because I've made my body my altar, I can feel the changes like all of a sudden, right? I don't know if I spoke to you about cutting down on sugar. I
Mhm.
think I did. I mentioned that my
Yes, you
body was
did.
like, no more sugar. I had sugar sometime, like, you know, normally I have like a Sprite and cake or something, and I did have it. I like puked like an hour later. Immediately I took it. My body
Mm.
was like, there's something foreign in here that we need expelling. And I was like, what? These are normal things that I would have. Like, it's not strange for me to have a Sprite and cake. But this time, my body was like, I'm not even doing this with you. Puke this out. And I did. And I was like, wow, no more sugar. So that's been very strict over here. And I feel like I feel my body more because of that. What's the right word? Intention to make my body the altar. Everything is reducing. You know what I'm saying? Things that didn't
Oh, I
work out anymore.
absolutely understand that
Yes.
because one of the things that I do talk about when holding space with women is our body being the temple and the altar, because there's such a disconnect from the body, and in itself. So a lot of times, especially in the space of getting Reiki attunements,
Okay.
when getting the first Reiki attunement, a lot of people will be like, oh, well, I wasn't able to eat this and this anymore after that attunement. I'm sure that you wasn't because the first
Mm.
attunement is on the physical level and the body is saying, I don't want this crap anymore. And you're asking for a serious opening into a spiritual alignment, then that means that these things cannot be within the temple anymore because you finna
Definitely.
find out that you were always at home within yourself.
Yes, totally agree. And it's nice because I think one thing women we fall prone to being disconnected from our bodies because we don't want to fully feel the extent of pain that we may have,
Yeah.
whether
Mhm.
through trauma, whether through abuse. We disconnect, and when we disconnect from our intuition because I truly believe that our body is a very strong channel, and when
Yeah.
you have all these clear cognizant senses or these clear senses, this is a channel that transmits and also like absorbs information. So you need those clearings and those blockages to be released so that spirit can flow more easily and resonate more with the body. I used to find that on my journey, my spirit and my body went really like collaborators. They're very much
Mhm.
strangers.
Mhm.
Now it
Mhm.
took a while to get here. It took a while, a lot of shadow work, a lot of healing, a lot of understanding. And then I
Mhm.
realized that, you know, my body has always communicated to me. My intuition and my body, they had that wire. It was all about
Yes.
like that acknowledgement. It was about the not only the acknowledgement of my intuition, but the action. So that's
Yeah.
where the disconnect came in. And I knew that that's where the disconnect was. And so I don't know. I can't say that I knew the time when it changed, but there's a time last year where I just felt like I fully aligned. I'm in my Saturn return right now, but I felt like my body
Mhm.
and my spirit were finally seeing each other eye to eye because things just felt different. And I could feel my body telling me things more than before. And that's when
Mhm.
I realized that, you know, you're not trying to, you avoid being present in this body because you're avoiding feeling certain things that
Mhm.
you've cut yourself away from.
Mhm.
And the book that came to mind while we're having this discussion is Women Who Run with the Wolves. I don't know if you've read it,
Mhm. Yes,
right? It's the
yeah.
Bible. I don't even know if you mentioned it last time on your episode, but I know that when I read that book, and I loved how it was on the basis of intuition and then psychology and symbology, all these things that really, really
Yeah.
heighten our senses. I loved it. And it just made me think of, certain stories spoke about how we were just cut from the root of our intuition, and we get rid of self-preservation, we get rid of everything that makes us stronger and powerful. And
Yeah.
having this conversation with you is like, I can feel the power of the ancestors you're referring to. I can feel the power of the work that you do without you going so much into detail. You know what I'm
Mm,
saying? That power
mm,
is there. And I now realize that that's energy in the sense of who we are speaks
yes. Mm,
volumes, but
yes.
our mind may limit that. Most
Yes.
especially as women, who we are really lies rooted in our connection to Mother Nature, our body, and our intuition. And if
And
every
there's a reason why. And there's a reason
Mm,
why, because Mother Nature is the original mother.
yeah.
This earth, where we came from, so we will go back to the soil. There's so much information that lies within the soil that if we don't take time to connect back to what we originally come from, we won't know ourselves.
Yes. Yes,
Hmm.
very true. And even this morning when I was walking around, we have a garden at the back. I was like, I need to be here more. I need to connect more. That's the whole point of existence, connecting. And I feel as though
Hmm.
sometimes we may feel when we're not connected to ourselves because, social media, bed rotting, all these things. And you're like, I need to see me. And I feel like
Yeah.
the best place to see me is in nature. I realized that this morning with your feet on grass,
Mhm.
you seeing the
Yes.
wind blow, hearing it blow, the trees moving, you just feel like you do
Oh,
feel home.
I
You don't need to
tell
go
you
too far
what,
to find home.
rain, sleet, snow, sun. The first thing I do after I open my eyes is I come outside. I face where the sun is coming up and I take a deep breath in and I thank the Great Spirit for blessing me to have the
Yes.
ability to feel the ground underneath my feet, to feel the wind, to
Yes.
listen, to see, to enjoy this beautiful creation around me. You know, yeah, talking about basic things to get in alignment. That is one of them.
Mm.
One very basic thing. And it's also a commitment that you're saying that you would make to yourself, like to get back in alignment with self.
Yes, definitely.
Hmm.
And since we're on the topic of intuition, which is my favorite topic, because I feel like I said, I'm a life path 11. Intuition is like my guidance system to move through life. Growing
Hmm.
up, when I wasn't listening to my intuition, I've been highly intuitive since I was born, but I cut it off due to fear. And that's why when I read Women Who Run with the Wolves, like tears came to my eyes because, oh my goodness, you already know, it's the best book to read as a woman that is just breaking out of identities that weren't really hers. But
Hmm.
speaking on intuition, you spoke about having visions, and I found that so interesting. Can you share how you discovered your intuitive gifts and how you refined them to use them in service?
Oh, okay, yes. So I can say that I have been having visions since I was a child. Um, I have been seeing things and telling my parents about it since I was a kid.
Did they believe you?
My mother, yes, my grandmother, absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. Um, my dad, he always is a little flippant about it, but because of him witnessing things happening, things coming into fruition from what I've seen, he really, even though he would be like, that's hocus pocus, he knows like that it's gonna happen.
Okay.
He knows that it's gonna happen, that if I seen it, that is most likely. Now my interpretations has been a whole nother different ball game of learning. Um Now, I have seen things, and one of the things I'll say is this: I've learned that in the things that I see, that mine is in threes. It's either 3 minutes, 3 hours, 3 days, 3 months, 3 years. It
Hmm.
is it is in the number of threes. So if I see something for somebody and I talk to them about it, I can't tell you unless spirit tells me when.
Okay.
it's going to come to pass. But I can tell you that it is in the spaces of threes.
Interesting.
So,
So you work with
um,
numbers as well.
yes, absolutely. A lot of my things are in numbers.
Interesting.
Um, not
S-
just numbers, but also like music.
Okay.
Music. Spirit talks to me a lot in song.
Hmm.
I will hear different things, and it'll tell me, oh, well, that person's going through this, and because this song was playing in my head. um, so
That's fun. I
the
used to get that, you know. Sometimes you're like,
yes,
why is this
I
song in my
love
head?
that.
Like, can you go? Then you realize it's a message. And I'm like, wow, I love how you can receive messages in any
In
form, any
all kinds
way.
of ways, in all kinds of ways. That's what I was going to say. Now, my interpretation of these things came way later, of being able to actually identify that a lot of the things that I was feeling, seeing, hearing were a part of my gifts to myself,
Mm,
you
okay.
know? So one of the things is like, I feel in my body people's physical ailments, right?
Oh, okay.
I can feel physical things that are wrong with people, and be spot on usually if what's transpiring with them. It took me a while though to understand that the feelings were not my own, but they were somebody else's.
Okay.
Um, I s- it took me a long while to even I call it when spirit is stepping into the room. I feel a tightness around my head that feels like a band is squeezing my head when basically when spirit enters the room with me, when I'm in a space where it's not just me in communion here, you know.
Okay.
I feel that really strongly around my head. It took me a while to understand that that was when spirit has absolutely stepped into the space. It's not me operating here. Um, to understand that, oh, when I feel this in the small of my back, or if I feel this headache over here in the frontal area of the head, these aren't my things. These are the person that I'm talking to stuff. It's taken me even some time to always be able to understand the visions that I see.
Mm,
Um, Before Trump was elected the last time, I was shown a vision of water racing, racing, racing. And on one side, it was people that I knew and I loved. But on this other side where I was at, it was also some people that I knew and loved and didn't know. Um, but we could not cross this water. You know, we weren't able to get to each other's side at all.
okay. Hmm.
Um, and I did a reading before the election was done, and I was spot on for the reading, spot on who was going to win, what was going to happen, the fight for the White House, all of those things. And all of that, I didn't understand at first that that vision of water that was being shown rushing was a division of the people, and that I was
Mm.
going to have people that I loved and cared for on the other side,
Wow.
not standing with me. And there was not going to be a way for us to get to each other. There was going to be no understanding here.
Oh my goodness.
It was going to be what it is. We were going to be on this side and they were going to be on that side. Now, yes, now what that can foretell to a bigger picture can mean so many things, you know, but in that space, it was showing a division of the people here in the States. It was showing a division. I was shown a house, and I will later I'm gonna find the reading and I'm gonna send it to you.
Okay.
I was shown a house, and two men fighting, white knuckles fighting. And it was a big grand house like the White House.
Hmm.
I was shown literally, you'll see the picture where it's shown the face of one man taking off a mask of the face and a snake by
Oh
him.
wow.
Like, man was orange.
Oh my gosh.
Funny. It's so crazy. I depicted the reading to the T, to the T. And even myself was
That
like,
is
what in the world?
crazy.
So, like I said, it's taken time for me to understand how these feelings feel and how to interpret them. But I would suggest, don't give up on your spirits or your gifts,
Hmm.
you know, because it
Definitely.
does take time. It takes time to break away from conditioning, you know, and then we are in a world that puts so much demand on being a human being, you know, as women. It's like, oh, you've had this many children with this many men and blah, blah, blah. Shame on you. Shame
Mm.
on this. Shame on
And they
that in
use
your
shame a
life.
lot for women. They use shame a lot to
Yes, there's
limit
so
and
much
hinder
shame, shame,
women.
shame that
Mm.
we are supposed to be walking around with. And let me tell you this. Let me tell you this. None of us, as I said, were born or given a handbook. Our parents were not given handbooks on how to be parents. And guess what? We weren't given handbooks on how to be human beings.
True. True.
We weren't given any handbooks, and people would like to say that the Bible was a handbook given to us. That's another discussion for another time. But what I'm saying specifically, that as human beings truly operating in this world, when you were born, you were not giving a handbook on how your life was going to map out or what you was going to go through. And there's no way that as a child that you prayed for trauma and drama in your life. There's
True.
no way that you asked to be birthed into things like that. It's an unfortunate part. It can be an unfortunate, but also fortunate part of our journeys. And as time goes on, we build tools and you learn how to operate the way that best works out for you.
Yes. Very good answer. I really love that because my next question is about tools and practices for women wanting to improve their intuition.
Right. One of the things is just what you said, going out into nature. Going out into nature is a great way to open yourself up. And I am a breath work person,
Oh,
so I always suggest breath work, but I also understand that it takes a lot of time for some people to get out of their heads and into their breath. It is not an easy
very
feat for
true.
everybody. Meditation is also not for everybody, depending on the space that they are in at the time they are in it.
Mm.
If we haven't been able to control obsessive thoughts, then no, meditation may not be for you. You know what I'm saying? You may need to find other sort of meditative thing to do to counteract the obsessive thoughts, but sitting still may not be your jam. You know, but one of the number one things is what you suggested is going into nature. I promise if you just let yourself stand there, and you can look up something called mountain pose, which is a yoga pose. It's one of the best, easiest poses that you can do. If you go out into the grass or dirt or wherever you can find some nature for real and just stand there in mountain pose. And once you get into that pose where the body feels, it just sets into a space where it says, that kind of feels good. Lean into that feeling
Mm.
and just start listening to the noises around you. One by one, detect a noise, whether it be a bird or a
Mm.
frog or a cricket or a horn. Listen to that one sound for a little bit,
Yeah.
and it'll bring you right into the present moment, if only for a minute. If only for a minute. I promise you, your body will say, thank you for that 1 minute of stillness that you gave me connecting back to myself.
Mm.
And the Mother Earth will reward you with information about yourself.
That's beautiful. I recall a time when I was spending so much time in nature in London, and I truly believe that my senses increased because I was
They did.
hearing the animals. It was like I could read the energy of the animals that I saw in parks, dogs, ducks, everything. I could hear
And
everything
they
and tap
could
into
read
everything.
yours, and
Mm-hmm.
they were
Yes.
intrigued with you
Yes, they
too.
were. Yes,
I
they
bet
were.
you find that people's look, I tell people all the time, I am not a cat person, but girl, I can walk into somebody's house with cats and their cats are trying to love on me. And I'm like, I am so not a cat person. But
Yeah.
animals love me. You know why? Because the vibration is there. The connection
Definitely.
has been made.
Yes, that's how I am. If I go to a park, I have dogs coming to me, standing with me, dancing with me, and I'm like, what's going on? But nature actually attunes your vibration. And it's just hitting me that that's what happened around that time because my senses were so high from hanging out in nature every single day. I became so aware of birds, bees, ants, the trees. Like there's so much more to life than what we usually engage in. So thank you for sharing that.
Yes. You know what? And really, what it is that life has changed and shifted so much away from us just being outside. A lot of us are spending a lot of time on screens. We are
Yes.
even substituting the sound of nature through YouTube, rather than just sitting outside and listening to the sound of nature.
So true.
You know, there is a healing within nature itself, um, because she's renewing herself all the time, and she has the energy to renew you. You don't have to draw only
Mm-hmm.
off of your own energy and your own being. She's out there ready to renew you all the time, calling you to come sit with her, to hold space with her, to remember yourself when you remembered her.
Definitely. Yeah, I do agree with that. And I think, hanging out in nature is a form of nurture. So what would
It
you
is.
say you engage in to nurture yourself as a mother?
Oh, well, one is baths.
Mm,
Because water is a portal for me, but it's also one of my most favorite things to do is to just soak all day. I will I get up so early in the morning so that I can soak for hours in the tub without disturbing anybody else in the house for
I
my
totally get
many
that.
hours I lay in the tub.
I get that. And salt baths are the best.
Yes, look, a lot of times I'll tell you what, I'm not even getting in there to bathe. I'm just laying in the water.
Mm.
It is one of my it is my most amazing downtimes for myself. The other thing that I really really love to do for myself is to go hiking.
Okay.
I've always been very physical. I've physically fit parents.
Oh,
One of my favorite things to do is to go hiking. I used to run a lot, and it helps me to connect with the physical parts of myself, to release certain things physically, you know. So I love to hike. I also love to lift weights. I love to I used to love to run, but I do a lot more walking in nature now more than anything. And I
you're active.
Yes, and I spend a lot of time sitting by water. Any chance that I can get to go to the lakes, I kayak a lot too. I love, love, love kayaking. Um, any chance I can get to go sit by the water, I do that. I bring my kids. We literally spend days and days outside, especially when we're in the environment where we want to be outside.
Okay, that's lovely.
hmm
When you say you use water as a portal, what do you mean? Can you tell me more about that?
Yes, water's so fluid, and what I've realized is that when I'm sitting in water or by water, running water, I'm receiving so 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 many messages. Um, I'm not sure if it's just the buoyancy that happens within the person in the water, or if it's just the water itself. I know there's been a lot of studies about water being a conduit of spiritual energy.
Definitely.
Yes, and I believe that wholeheartedly. Whenever I'm trying to work out a problem, or even if I have clients that oh even if I'm having clients that need them called into energy of water, I will go there too, and I get so much information about what they may need, in the water. um You talk about your body being an altar. My whole life is a moving ritual for me.
Wow, I love
Every
that.
aspect of it. Even when
Mm.
I'm preparing food, I don't make this food just to make food. Like right now, I got up this morning and intentionally like, okay, it's cold. I'm going to make a pot of beans. It'll feed many people. If anybody decides to stop by, they can eat beans all
Okay.
day long and they'll love them. I'm going to fry some cabbage. But as I'm preparing this food, I'm praying over the food. I'm asking for the Spirit to bless the hands that are preparing the food, to bless the people that hands touch the food before I even touch this food. Bless the hands that tilt the soil where this food came from. All of those things. So I want to bless every aspect of this food, and not only for it to provide nourishment and sustenance to the body, but also for it to nourish the mind, the heart, and the soul into opening up itself into remembrance of other times that their ancestral lineage ate this food.
Yes. Wow. Wow.
So everything for me literally is like in a moving ritual. And in every aspect of my life, I am honoring myself all the time, not just in the bath. When I make this food, it feeds my soul to feed other people. It feeds my soul to feed other people. Part of the reason why my podcast is called Rabbit Food is one because I'm an amazing cook and I love to feed people.
Oh,
I break bread with people. My business I had that I ended up shutting down when my son passed away. We fed
sorry to
people. We
hear
broke
that.
bread.
Yeah.
We broke bread with people. I love to feed. Girl, if you lived by me, you would get invitations for dinner all the
Oh,
time.
I would love that.
We get invitations for dinner all the time. I love for people to break bread together. There is something so amazing about doing that with people. So
Yeah.
even that's what I'm saying,
Wow.
even just in my own life, although I would say the defined things are water for me, but my life is a moving ritual and I am constantly honoring myself throughout it
That's
with
beautiful.
congratulations, with gratitude to myself, to the people around me, to the spirit that moves within me. And every time that I acknowledge those things, I fill myself up. My energy battery gets charged right back up. And I feel acknowledged and honored within myself.
That's a beautiful share.
Hmm.
Thank you. So, I must say, when you speak, it's also very nurturing to the person listening. It's like you speak
Hmm.
directly to their heart chakra. That's how I feel. My heart chakra feels
Hmm.
expansive from you speaking, from you expressing. So, thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. And you know what? I want to tell you that's part of my prayers every day. That's
Yeah.
part of my prayers every day. You know, that in all of my, first of all, I have what I call the OLC, my old lady crew. They're all
Okay.
my old ladies that are
Oh, that's cute.
60 and over. And it's
Okay.
a good gang of them that I hang out with. One of them says regularly, that we have to have a new every day, something that we learn new every day. So I ask for spirit all the time to allow for me to be new in somebody. And whenever I'm having interactions with other people, for them to be new for me too.
Mm,
I love to receive information and give information. The
yes.
other thing that I ask for spirit every day is to allow for my words to be like honey,
Mm, okay.
to allow for my words to drip out of me like honey, not to be sugar coated, you know, but to fall on the ears the way that they need to be heard, to go into the heart that needs to feel it. Everything I say ain't for everybody, and
Definitely.
I'm comfortable with that.
Yes.
But I want for the words that do come out of me to fall onto the ears that need to hear it the most, to enter into the heart that needed to remember who she was.
Yes. Oh, and that's definitely what's happening in this conversation because I definitely feel like my chest has expanded. Like you speak with so much passion and it pours into people for sure. I'm sorry that speaks. So I know that I can recognize when another person speaks in a way that is super powerful.
Oh, yes, that's why I told you I love your voice too. I already know that you're powerful.
Oh,
When
thank you.
when I was a child, I had an auntie and I'll tell you, this is a funny story. I never met her before in my life, never laid eyes on her ever. Okay.
Okay.
She used to call me all the time as a young person. She used to call me as a young girl. I always imagined her when I was young living in these mountains in California that was just like secluded.
Okay.
But I really don't know where she lives at. So she would call me all the time and she would say, Megan, you better do something with that voice.
Oh
You
wow.
better do something with that voice. There's people that need to hear that voice. And she's an older aunt of mine's. Um, and would call me when she was going through hardships and stuff just to listen to me talk to her. She was like, you
Oh,
better
that's
do
sweet.
something with that voice. You're going to reach so many people. And that stuck with me. That stuck with me for a long time.
Yeah, I'm actually glad to hear that because it's good when you have elders around you that see you and tell you the things that they see and try to like push you into actualizing that gift. Not everybody
Hmm.
has that. So that's powerful because we all know what it's like growing up and feeling like we should be seen but not heard. So
Hmm.
having that relative push activate that in you is a blessing. And it's also an example of what you mean when you say the mothers before you or the hands of the mothers inside you. These little things, they push
Hmm.
you towards your purpose and your path. So thank you for sharing that. Honestly, so heartfelt. What are key lessons you've learned through your self-healing journey and your actualization of your intuitive gifts?
One of the number one things that I learned is that healing is not linear. and it is forever continuous. The day that you reach the end of your healing is the day you will not wake up on this earth.
Mm, yeah,
Um, so that is one of the
that's
number one
deep.
things. That's one of the number one things that I've learned in this journey
Okay.
is that it is not linear, it is continuous, that it is filled with ups and downs, and that even when you have learned to shut your mouth at times when you feel like you don't need to be speaking, you will sometimes still open it up.
Hmm.
That's nothing for you to feel bad about. It is the time that you are being shown to give yourself grace.
Okay.
Each aspect of our journey is a lesson, but if we only if we look at it as only a lesson and not the blessings that they truly really are.
I feel that my last question is one for women in general. What advice do you have for them when it comes to their journey and even utilizing a book like Women Who Run with the Wolves? What key ingredient do women need to remember in order to feel like they are aligned with who they really are and are
Mm.
actualizing their personal power?
Yes, and that one key would be grace.
Why?
Because a lot of times we find ourselves not giving our own selves grace.
Okay.
Most women throughout the world are conditioned to give grace unto others rather than themselves
Very
first.
true. Very true.
Like I said, we can talk to women throughout the world. It is going to be a constant at the constant base of the vibration, you know, that a lot of us have not been taught to have the ability to give and extend grace to ourselves. If we allow for ourselves to extend grace to ourselves, we become graceful within our lives. And one of my number one lessons was grace and the acknowledgement of perspectives that although I may feel certain things are true to me, I might feel differently the next day once I've moved up in a ring on my journey. Once I've elevated in my journey, I may not feel the same way that I did yesterday. These journeys are about perspective changes and really open yourself up by asking spirit to open you up to having the ability to operate within the changes of perspective that you may have to take within life, you know. So yeah, say my number one lesson has been grace. Grace, period, at the core of it has
Okay.
been having grace for self.
Yes. And I feel like for me, my number one message would be putting yourself first. Because, when we talk about womanhood and we even focus on being a mother, I think we're used to self sacrificing and over giving, not having limits for how much people take from us, and feeling as though nurturing is putting other people before us. But
Yeah.
as you said, when you do your ritual during the full moon and new moon, it's about praying for yourself first. So in life, it's about putting yourself first, because by
Yes.
doing so, you'll be able to be there for other people. You'll be able to have a wider capacity for people because you are putting yourself first, your needs first, having that grace for yourself, as you said,
Mm-hmm.
and pouring into yourself. I feel as though women, they're really used to pouring from an empty cup, and they're
Oh,
used to
oh,
pouring but not being poured into, and thinking that it's okay, thinking that that's what womanhood is. That's why I said I really always try to tell people that self-sacrificing should be something that you remove from your dictionary, because there's no honor in self-sacrifice, which is also self-betrayal. you know
yes, it is.
there's no honor amongst people that self-betray for a cause. It's never going to work, sacrificing your soul to gain the world. So that's my key message. Like, put yourself first, put your needs first. A selfish woman is a sexy woman. And other than that, like, you'll be able to find yourself if you're able to arm if you're able to arm yourself with these tools and advice. So that's my closing message.
I want to add on to that.
Okay.
Um, I'm not sure what you guys see there in Legos, but here in the States, a lot of us see this poster in school that says, if the glass is half empty or half full, it's about how you view that, right?
Yes.
So I challenge that though, because that is an ingrained situation for a lot of us women here in the US. We have all seen that poster in our schools or
Okay.
therapist's office that tells you it's about looking at the glass half empty or half full. So a lot of times, a lot of us will be operating in a halfway point within ourselves. And because we believe that looking at this as a space of half full, that it's okay to continue to pour out of us,
Mm.
but I challenge you in that thought process. Halfway of anything means that you ain't got shit to give.
Okay.
You don't got nothing to pour out of you into anybody else. The only time that you can pour from yourself is when you are in a space of overflow.
Period.
Yes, you should not be giving yourself any permission to pour from any halfway state, any mid place state. You should only be giving yourself permission when you have reached a state of overflow. And let's say that you have poured more than what you were overflowing with. It is okay to pull your energy back and say, I ain't got nothing left to give right now.
Yes, definitely. That's how it should be. Yeah.
Yes. And you are absolutely right. Number one, putting yourself first. My first Reiki class is called that because the first situation that you are going to work on, and you can't even move on to the next level in my school, in my class at all, into the second level until you have worked on yourself. And I
Hmm.
see that in you. And believe me, it's not because you're going to take any test that I give you that it's going to be like, oh, I've worked on myself. Don't you see by my grading marks? No, it will literally be how you respond to me in these spaces. You feel what I'm saying? When I have to make you stand accountable within your own space, you will begin to respond to me differently once you start sweeping around your own door and putting
Mm.
yourself first.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, I agree.
Mm-hmm. That is why I am a true believer. That's why grace is needed. Grace is needed to be able to put yourself first. Yes.
Yeah. And even when you mentioned it, I was like, that's powerful because a lot of people don't even, a lot of women, they don't take their needs into consideration or they're extra hard on themselves for making mistakes. And I like how,
Mm-hmm.
I think you mentioned something alongside this conversation where it's like, don't worry, everybody has experienced these things you've experienced, but it's about making those changes. It's not
Mm-hmm.
about beating yourself down. And I
Yes.
think
It's
some of us tend to do that a lot, So yes,
mm-hmm.
so I hope by listening to this episode, you ladies are able to have a different way of looking at yourself, a different way of addressing yourself. Even the book Women Who Run with the Wolves addresses inner voices. So if that's a book you haven't read, highly recommend it.
You know what? I have a book I want to recommend that I
Please do.
love, and it actually changed my life. It's called Of Water and Spirit. Have you ever heard?
Of What Time Spirit by Patrice.
Yes.
Yes, I have it.
Oh my gosh, that is one of my most favorite books. You know why that is one of my most favorite books?
Why?
Because I'm also from a tribal situation. So reading his
Oh,
story was so I it spoke to my soul. It spoke to my soul. It is one of my most favorite books to read for somebody that's going through a spiritual journey because within the very beginning of that book, it speaks to things that we would consider to be magic. You know what I'm saying? It speaks to things that he saw as a young person
yes.
that sometimes we have questioned within our own lives as young people. Like, did we really see
See
that?
that? Mm-hmm. Yes,
Because we
yes.
know at the beginning of the book, he sees they put the hyena tail in his grandfather's hand and he walks around. And he's a dead man.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it speaks to things that make you even look back within your own childhood, like, wait a minute, I questioned those things. Uh, Before we get off, I want to say one more thing because my daughter's in here making her avocado toast.
Okay.
We started watching Paranormal Children. I think it's on Netflix
Okay.
or Hulu. It's on one of them. We started watching this Paranormal Children's thing, and I've talked to my kids a lot about my dream experiences and the things I used to see as a kid growing up, like seeing entities in the room and stuff. I talked to my kids about this ever since they were babies because I want to know when if they ever have these kind of
Oh, that's very
interactions
good.
or dreams and things. So I
Yeah.
want them to feel open to talking to me about this
Great.
also.
Yeah.
So I talk with them about it. Now we're watching Paranormal Children, and even with talking with them about it, one time my mom was at my house, and I tell her, tell the kids about what I used to tell you I would see in the room. And she confirms with them, about the entities that I would talk to her about. And so they say, so on the paranormal activity, the kids in that show brought up the same person that I was seeing
No way.
also.
No way.
Yes.
How?
Described
For
him to
real?
the T of what I described to my children.
That's crazy.
Yes, the shadow man with the hat
Oh my gosh.
was a very tall, tall, tall figure that would come in my room, and he have a hat, like a hat on. It was very broad. I could never make out a face. He was just a dark figure, not dark feeling. I was scared because I was a kid and I didn't understand why he was coming in my room
Yeah.
and standing at the edge of my bed. And I didn't
Wow.
understand it. And I was too scared to
Scary.
ask him what he was doing there.
Yeah.
Um, but to listen to those kids on the Paranormal Kids show talk about the top hat man, um, I had to have my mom come over and watch it too. She was like, "Oh my gosh, like these children are saying verbatim what I used to say to my mom as a kid."
Wow. Wow. This
Like, I
confirms
believe from
everything.
watching that, I understand now that there's a lot of us out here that see the same and feel the same things. A
Yeah.
lot of us go through the same kind of experiences.
Yes. And they activate us in different ways or in similar ways.
Yes, yes. So for any of your listeners that seen that top hat man, we
Hmm.
are paranormal people. You probably can get a job doing paranormal
For
investigations. You just
real.
have to tap back into those kind of things
No,
if
for
you've been
sure.
far removed from them.
Yeah, definitely. I like that. I like that it's a gift that you came to actualize into as an adult. I think that's
Yeah,
where I am on my journey. And I feel like as though like speaking to you, your energy sounds like somebody that is at home with herself, that mothers herself, that nurtures herself, that has made a safe space for herself within herself. So when you speak, you sound like somebody that somebody can be comfortable with and come to your house and have meals, So I really, really love interacting and talking to you, Bonnie. Like, the energy exchange is always on a high level, and I really appreciate the conversations that we have.
absolutely. Me too.
Yes, thank you so much for joining me here today. I will
Abs-
definitely share all your social media handles in our info box, and we would love to have you here another time.
Absolutely. Anytime, anytime.
I'm glad. All right. Have a lovely day, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you. You too.
Bye. Bye,
Bye bye.
listeners.
Bye.